Hello and welcome. Today I'll be turning these simple materials into one of my best-selling kitchen utensils. In this video I'll walk you through the process of making pizza cutters, bottle openers, graters and ice cream scoops. I'll also share a few different handle styles I make, both in resin and traditional wood. Let's get started. When making utensils, it's really important to consider what sort of timbers you're going to be using, as some woods can be toxic. So things like yew or laburnum wouldn't be considered safe if you were making a spatula or a spoon like this. But since I'm only turning the handle and the handle doesn't come in contact with the food, that leads me to be a bit more creative when it comes to choosing my materials. And it's not just timbers I can get away with using, I can start using things that are set in resin. So for example, pine cones, moss, flowers, I've got some star anise here and cinnamon sticks. I'm going to prep the blanks. I'm cutting them at 30mm square and 130mm long. So now that I've cut down the blanks to size and I've paired them up to the utensil that I'm going to be using, it's time to start drilling the holes. So when drilling in batches like this, it's all about prep work. Once you get your pillar drills set up, then you can just go through them one by one. Today I'll be using a stepped drive centre for the headstock and a ring live centre for the tailstock. I'm also going to be using a Colwyn Way signature skews, and this one here has got a bit of a radius to it. That'll be for my main planing cut. Then we've got a smaller one for the detail. I've got a beading parting tool that I'm going to be using to create the shoulder for the ferrules, and then a parting saw to get rid of the little nib. So the friction drive will fit inside the hole that I drilled, and then the other side I'm just going to bring the tailstock up, pinch it onto the bed and then just tighten it down. So first I'm going to do a planing cut. I'm going to start nice and slow and ramp up. Make sure we're all nice and tight. We're still not round, I can feel it, and you can also check by putting the tool on top. If it's vibrating like that, you need to go a little bit more. Right, so that's nice and smooth. And that's the shavings that we want to get. So next we need to put our little shoulder in for the ferrule to sit in. I've already got my calipers set up. Now what I'm going to do is use a beading parting tool. Nice and gently. So now that we've cut it, I'm just going to triple check it, make sure it fits and it's not too big. That's about right. That leaves enough room for the glue to sit in as well. So now that we have done that, it is time to refine the shape and put the end in. So the shape's really up to you. but I like them tapering in and a nice thick handle on the end here. I'm just creating a little radius, making sure there's no tear out. So one other important thing to do is to put a tiny little cut in just on the base of where the ferrule sits. And what that happens, if your ferrule's not caught on the wood a little bit and it starts to fill the wood out, it doesn't stop it from going in. So all I'm going to do is just going to come in and do a tiny little bit of a recess, and we'll just tidy that up. So everything's nice and smooth. I'm checking for any bits of tear out because it'll be really difficult to sand them out. So now I've got a nice shiny surface. I just need to sand it. So dust extractor on. We're going to go medium speed so we're not overheating the wood. I'm using 400 grit paper. I just want to get rid of that sharp corner that's on here. And then keep moving it around so it doesn't overheat. Now it's time to put on some finish. So I'm using finishing oil. Don't need much. This is spalted silver birch, so it will soak up the oil nice and quick, especially on the end grain, so just pay a bit more attention down there. Right, now I'm going to use 600 grit paper. I'm going to turn the lathe speed all the way down, and then we'll just gently work that oil in. What I'm looking for is a little paste starting to form. And I can feel the paper heating up slowly. So see that paste on here? And that is what will fill the grain and give it that satin feel to it, especially on the end grain. And then we can use a little bit of the shavings just to get rid of any excess, burnished with a paper towel. Right, so now the handle is finished. All I need to do is remove the little nib at the end here. I'm just going to back off the tailstock a little bit so this is loose and it's not going to pinch my little flush cut saw. I'm just gently going to go around it, making sure it doesn't tear out the grain. Just like that. Then we can back it off. If it's stuck on here, all you have to do, hold it, turn the lathe on, and it will let go. And now we've got a tiny little nib, which I'm just going to use 315 paper, and just smooth that out. Make sure it's smooth to touch. Then just a little bit of oil, and because it's end grain, the oil soaks in really quickly. So now the handle is finished. What we need to do is pop a little bit of glue. I'm using Gorilla Glue. It's a 2-hour set glue. It works really well on timber handles, but it doesn't work on resin. So I'm just putting a little bit on here for the ferrule. The ferrule goes on just like that, and I'm spinning it on as I'm going on. That way you don't get any excess spill out. And then we just need to push the handle in. Just like that. Orientate it, the way I think it looks the best, which is here. And I'm also looking down into the hole, making sure I get a tiny little bit of overspill of glue, which I have. And then we can just prop it up like so and leave it to dry. So now the handles have been made, I'm just applying a second coat of oil, but first I'm burnishing them using a 00 pad. So I'm just doing the light coat, and then I'm going to let that sit for a couple of minutes and then buff it off with a clean rag. So these have now been oiled and they're ready for buffing. I need to also check them, make sure there's no glue overspills anywhere and they're all nice and clean. But that's basically it. This is how I make my wooden handles. Let's move on to the resin ones. So it's the same principle as with my moulds for the pepper mills. We silicone the edges and then set the timber into it whilst the silicone is still wet. It stops it from floating. So now it's time to fill them with pine cones, moss, got some star anise and cinnamon sticks. So now these are all filled. They're going to be floating the moment we put the resin in. So what I have to do is I have to ensure that everything is secure and nothing floats to the surface, because that will just leave a gap. So I just wanted to show you what happens when things start to float in resin when the tape that I put on top let go. So as you can see, I've got cinnamon sticks here, but as I turn the blank around, it becomes a little bit empty. But I do have a bit of moss here, which that means I'll get away with this one. For that, I'm just using a bit of gaffer tape. So now that my moulds are ready to go, it's time to start mixing the resin. And today I'm going to be using the Epodex Ultra Clear Pro resin, and this is the deep cast version that's mixed 1:2 ratio by weight. So I've got my tubs ready to go. I've also got my scales here and my paddle mixer. And then once it's all mixed, I'm going to be adding pigment powders just to give it a nice bit of colour. So now the resin's in the pressure pot. I'm going to leave it there for about 3 to 4 days to set. Once it is, I'm going to demold it, cut it down to blanks, and then drill out the hole for the hardware, exactly like I did when I did the wooden handles. So the process for the resin handle is pretty much the same. The main difference being it's resin, so you have to cast it first, and then the way I'm going to finish it. But let's start turning first. Right, so first I'm going to use a rough and gouge, and I'm going to use it almost as a skewer, especially over this side here, because I have got end grain oak here, so I want to be careful not to tear that out. And then we're just going to gently go through. We can go in from the other side as well. Now this is where a friction drive have the advantages. If I go in and put it in too hard, especially into the oak here, and the oak wants to grab, like so, then instead of tearing the whole thing out, it will just stop, like that. Right, so let's stop and have a look. See, these are the little shavings I'm getting, which is the same thing that you would get if you use a skew, but it just stops me from changing the tools over. Now I've got a little bit of a tear out here, but that will be rounded off anyway, so it doesn't matter. But everything else looks really good. Stop and check. So we've got a tiny little bit of chip out here, but everything else seems to be good. The oak is nice as well. There's no tear out on the end grain or anything like that. So next I'm just going to create a little nib here and finish the handle on this side. And for that I'm using a negative rake scraper. The reason why it's vibrating is because I'm going in quite deep with a cut. If you were going nice and gentle like this, you get really nice finish. Right, go on this side as well. So I can't really get into where I need to go, so I'm just going to use a skew. Come in that way and create a nice flat shoulder for the bottle opener to sit on, and then I'm just going to go in and then refine the shape. Now if I was going to come in from this way, go that way, the grain's going up that way, so it will want to flare out, so hence why you're doing it from that side. And then refine the shape of the end here. I can feel a bit more chatter, so I'm just going to come in. Right, so that's the handle. Ready for sanding. Now I'm using Abranet, and we're going to go with 400, 500, 600, 800, and I'm using Yorkshire Grit microfine abrasive paste to polish the whole thing. Now when sanding resin like this, make sure you keep the pad moving at all times, otherwise you'll create little burn spots and they'll be very difficult to sand out. Okay, that's all done. So next I'm using Yorkshire Grit microfine abrasive paste. Going to pick up a little bit of my tissue Now the tissue you're using is quite important here, because you don't want anything that will grab. Because if you're using, for example, like a cotton cloth or anything like that, it may grab and then it will take your fingers with it. If this grabs, this is quite easily torn, so it doesn't really matter. My fingers are not going to get dragged into it. So nice quick polish. Just going to use a clean cloth to remove any excess. And we'll have a look at it. Right, so that's looking really good. Next is to remove the little nib. So to finish these, I'm just going to cut the end off using the little flush cut saw. Just like that. So 400 grit, I'm just using this to rest my hand on. So now that's done, I'm just going to use a little bit of sponge and a little bit of the paste, and then we'll just work it in. So when it comes to gluing these, because the top is wood, not resin, I can get away with the Gorilla Glue. If I was using a blank that was fully resin, then I would use epoxy, a 2-part epoxy. But this glue will just do fine. A little dab in there, and then we'll just drive the bottle opener in, screw that on. Just going to get a bit of towel and clean off the excess, and then once that cures, I can oil it, and then it will be ready to go. I've oiled all the handles. They have now fully cured, and I've burnished them using the 00 pad, which means they are now ready to be sold at my local upcoming craft fairs, and the dates for which can be found on my website, which is linked in the description below. So thank you very much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, share and click the notification bell so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos. And up next, I'm going to be making some of my Christmas decorations. So hopefully I'll see you there. Cheers!